Well, everyone grab your cups and strings because BT, the telecoms giant, is pulling off one of the greatest magic tricks of our digital age, making landlines disappear, that quite a lot of people, mostly our grandparents, still rely on. So what is their master plan? Well, they are replacing trusty landline phones with fancy new digital ones that unfortunately have a need for internet connections, which I'm guessing quite a lot of OAPs don't actually have. And therefore, it's kind of like forcing your grandma to be some sort of tech wizard, isn't it? And let's be honest, teaching some OAPs, not all of them, but some OAPs, how to use a remote control, it's kind of like already an Olympic level challenge as it is, isn't it? But wait, it kind of gets better because everything has been happily connected to those traditional phone lines, like door entry systems and alarms, that of course will need to be re-evaluated. It's a bit like decorating your house. Instead of just changing the paint colour, you decide to move the kitchen into the attic. Practical, isn't it, eh? But BT's digital voice program launched back in 2019 and probably was about as controversial as pineapple on pizza at a Pizza Lovers convention, which in my opinion definitely belongs in pizza. But anyway, they've now decided to put their plan into action, and starting today, new customers won't even be offered those classic landline phones anymore, and existing customers who dare to switch onto a new contract will be swiftly ushered into their digital age, whether they want to or not. And in my opinion, that is so wrong. Apparently big names like BT, Sky, TalkTalk and Vodafone are all dancing to the same digital tune. It's kind of like they're all on the same sort of secret mission to phase out the analogue world, isn't it? But here's the thing, almost 10 million lines still need to make the jump before BT switches off the old analogue system in December 2025. So in the next 3 years, households will have to decide between getting a broadband connection and keeping those digital calls with their landline, or simply embracing a mobile phone, which unfortunately for some OAPs might be a bit of a learning curve. And they quite rightly, in my opinion, got worried that our elderly and vulnerable people might be left high and dry, unable to reach out to loved ones or call for help during a power outage or whatever, an emergency. And yes, obviously they've got a point with that, especially when millions of households out there presumably don't have access to the internet at the minute. It's kind of like telling your grandparents to send an email when they've never actually sent a text message. And BT did this little dance, of course, temporarily halting their plans, but now of course they resumed it, assuring us that everything's under control. I mean, they've promised to provide free handsets for the elderly and vulnerable, which magically switch over using broadband and mobile network signals during power cuts. But tell me this, BT, what happens if OAPs don't actually want to pay for the internet that they probably won't use for anything else other than making calls? I mean, what happens then, eh? Are they just not allowed to have a phone no more? Even though, of course, they might have been using one for decades. It's just out of order, in my opinion. But anyway, the article says that BT is making a change which will directly affect thousands of customers. The telecoms giant is pushing ahead with this plan to scrap the traditional landline phone lines from today for new users, and it will see traditional home phones replaced with new digital ones, requiring all homes to have an internet connection. Everything that is connected to the phone lines will need to be reviewed, such as door entry systems and alarms, and BT launched its digital voice program back in 2019, with the plan being deemed as controversial. And from today, customers will no longer be offered landline phones, and existing customers switching to a new contract will also be transferred to the new service. Openreach, the wholesale provider, has already stopped selling old landlines in more than 500 areas, covering 4.6 million homes. This includes communication providers on its networks such as BT, Sky, TalkTalk and Vodafone. Just under 10 million lines still need to move to the new system before BT switches off the old analogue system in December 2025. And the switch could mean that households will need to get either a broadband connection to be able, to make digital calls with their landline, or a new mobile phone. There are concerns, of course, from charities when the plans were first announced that elderly or vulnerable Brits could be left isolated by the move. An investigation also found out that the move would leave thousands of vulnerable customers at risk of not being able to phone in emergency services during power outages, which actually is quite a big problem. Regulator Ofcom said at the time that millions of households don't have access to the internet, and following this, BT temporarily halted the planned rollout. Plans, though, have been resumed in June, and the company said that it has addressed the concerns. BT said that will ensure the vulnerable and elderly households are kept connected, providing free handsets that switch between using broadband and a mobile network signal during power cuts. But then again, in this video, it seems like the emergency services won't even come if you call them anyway, which actually is a massive problem in itself.